Hi everyone, this is Ramalinga Prasad Kuppa. Welcome to my channel Pharma World. Today's topic is remote assessment of pharmaceutical manufacturing facilities as per PICS guidelines PI 0561 and PI 0571. This latest approach is designed by the PICS through these two guidelines. Entry into force of these guidelines is from this January 2025. Let us understand the core requirements. Let us see how the remote assessment is carried out. These audits or inspection processes were developed during the pandemic to enable GMP inspections to continue where it has been difficult to conduct the on site audits. We all know that during the COVID 19 pandemic, it was almost impossible for anyone moving out safely and freely. Though there were concepts of virtual audits, it was not established on the exact procedure to assess the pharmaceutical sites successfully. These two PICS guidelines provide in depth insight into such remote inspections. Hybrid inspections are also possible where an assessment of a site performed using a combination of on site inspection and remote assessment. In hybrid inspections, where possible, remote assessment could be done and wherever necessary, as per the risk assessment report, some parts of the inspection happen on site. This type of remote assessment may be used beyond the pandemic situations also. An effective remote assessment could be useful for routine inspections also. It is like a situation where we can do banking activities successfully online without visiting the bank. This also helps as inspection tools to establish consistency amongst the inspectorates. This will be very useful as entire data can be recorded electronically and shared among other regulatory agencies on approvals, replacing the on site inspections significantly. Such data can be accessible for evaluation to public also. Let us see the areas of application. When there are travel restrictions, this may be one of the main reasons for selecting a remote assessment. Re-inspection, when the manufacturer demonstrates good levels of compliance in the previous inspections. This could be another reason. Since the previous audit was successfully completed and the manufacturer's attitude and approach to establish effective CAPA, the remote assessment could be possible. Verification of certain CAPA. If the CAPA includes the revised response for the observations in a very appropriate manner with all objective evidence to the satisfaction of the auditor, this type of assessment is good. As a part of CAPA, if the modified pictures of facility before rectification and after rectification is also submitted to the inspector to establish compliance to the observations of the inspector, it would satisfy the inspector greatly. Rapid assessment of GMP aspects in specific circumstances where there is an immediate need. This is to save time. And the essence of the inspection is to address the time constraint, to gather information for an inspection. This is useful to get the information in advance of the inspection. Let us see the methodology. Fully interactive remote assessment. In this type, the assessment is done remotely using video meetings, document sharing, video streaming from the plant site, and other live streaming interactive technology to evaluate GMP compliance. This system relies on the usage of effective technology to facilitate live interactions during the entire assessment period. It is a live interaction during a face to face inspection, including document sharing and video discussions with the inspected manufacturer. The subject matter experts, mostly the heads of the departments, will have to interact directly face to face with the auditor. Starting from the opening meeting introductions, the rapport should continue comfortably on either side as if the auditor and the auditee are on the same table. Email or any other platform may be used to share the documents and computer screens. Live video streaming from the site of all manufacturing or other areas concerned by the scope of the inspection should also be done. Other alternative sharing systems may be adopted in case the video streaming is not possible. QA documentation, including production records, BMRs, QC records, data integrity records, CAPA records, if any, from the previous inspection, as comprehensively as during on site inspections. Ideally, sharing tool and screen sharing could be utilized with detailed explanations by responsible persons. Partially interactive remote assessment. In this type, the assessment is done by video or phone meetings and document sharing to determine compliance with GMP principles. This is a partial assessment. This assessment does not include a fully interactive session during the entire assessment period. Documents may be shared via email, screen share, or another platform agreed upon in advance. This also restricts up to video interviewing of the responsible staff of each function. Desktop assessment. In this type, very limited face to face interactions happen and relies upon document review only and no live interactions with the manufacturing site. In this desktop assessment, only the document review is done and no live interactions are done with the firm. This, in fact, is a paper assessment. In this type of assessment, additional information will be sought in advance regarding inspections by any other regulatory agencies in a defined period, information to assess risk factors such as recalls, rapid alerts, changes in processes, products, personnel, etc. In such situations, Necessary information should be requested from the manufacturing site as required. Hybrid inspection. In this type, it is carried out using a combination of on site inspection and remote assessment. This is an integrated approach. Few critical areas may be inspected on site, and the other areas are assessed by remote interactive methods. This could include combination of one inspector who conducts both on-site and remote assessment of the site, inspectors on-site and inspectors may be the same or different authorities connecting remotely at the same time to the ongoing activity at the facility using a virtual technology. Here, the inspectors on site will have connection with another in an interactive remote assessment mode. Let us see the logistics requirements for remote assessments. Following technical requirements are necessary for such remote assessments. Conferencing software. This is very important. In today's day to day operations, we are all totally handicapped when the internet services disrupt for an hour. This is a fact of life. So, continuous connectivity of the internet is like a continuously working heart of the system. Without the heart working properly, no survival at all. Secure shared data storage places. This is important. Unless the data shared is safe and retrievable, there is a potential to lose the entire data. Data connections at GMP relevant facilities. Obviously, unless all departments are well networked, the assessment could be incomplete and unsuccessful. Web cameras, high efficiency scanners. The web cameras and scanners must be able to work faster with high definition picture quality and scan quality. Possibility of sharing the screen of computerized systems. Document, camera, audio systems, speakers, etc. All these are basic necessities for successful remote assessment. Let us see the requirements for conducting the remote assessment. Preparation for the remote assessment should fully focus on availability of proper logistic arrangements before starting the remote assessment. A dry run may be necessary to confirm that all the logistic requirements for remote assessment are in place. The audit should be conducted following the principles deployed during on site audit. The extent of documents to be reviewed shall be thoroughly defined ahead of the remote assessment. This type of audit must be like an on site audit. The documents may include previous inspection reports, compliance information from databases, core SOPs requested from the firm, product related documentation, statistical data, manufacturing related information, and others as required. All these items must be available for review online. Let us see the feasibility approach for remote assessments. A detailed risk assessment should be carried out to determine whether the desired scope could be achieved in the given circumstances. The remote assessment could be carried out only when there is no high risk factors compared with the on site audit. When there are potential high risks identified in remote assessment approach, an alternative inspection approach may be considered. When those risks identified that could be compromised in remote assessment, best option is to go for on-site audit. Depending upon the mitigation factors, the remote assessment approach may be designed. But if the identified high risk aspects are mitigated, remote assessment could be possible. Let us understand the mitigation plan approach in the next slide. Let us see the mitigation factor areas for selecting the remote assessment mode. Following aspects must be considered for the risk assessment for a remote assessment. Previous inspections history. If the kappa for the previous inspection was successfully addressed, the remote assessment type could proceed. Activities carried out at site. If the activities at site are not very critical and can easily go through the entire remote assessment, or if it is a single product with fewer established process steps. When was the on site inspection done? If the last audit conducted was not too far, this approach is okay. Recalls, complaints, etc. All recalls, market complaints, if any, are handled comprehensively. This approach is okay. Major changes since last inspection. All the major change controls are reviewed satisfactorily for impact on the process and products if remote assessment type is selected. Organizational culture, site communication style, etc. If the organization has open culture to share necessary data with an optimum time without any element of suspicion, knowledge of the responsible persons or subject matter experts is adequate. The overall organization appears to be honest, responding to the queries. This approach may work well. Extent of assessment scope. Continuing further on the mitigation factors, if the extent of remote assessment is less stressful and all the other arrangements are within control, remote audit is okay. Internet connectivity at site and inspectors. Internet connectivity should be pakka without any interruptions for remote assessment on either way for the site and the inspectors. Language barrier. This is another mitigation point to address. The language for communication between the auditor and the auditee should be the same. Otherwise, there should be a translator on either side of the audit. Number of inspectors required. Sometimes, depending upon the workload, more number of inspectors may be required. Mitigation plan should include to review if these factors can affect the remote assessment. So, if all these factors have to be taken to decide to go for a remote assessment, we have to do. Based on the risk assessment, advanced planning may be made for remote assessment. If required, advanced planning may be made. Other important points to note: the assessment report should clearly document the inspected areas as well as the mode of the assessment or inspection, that is, on site, remote, or hybrid, including detailed information on type of remote assessment employed. So, the final audit report should mention this fact. The supplementary guide PI 0571 provides the detailed aid memoir for preparation for remote assessment, conduct of the remote assessment, and post assessment activities for a remote assessment. This supplementary guide will help to remember all necessary audit review requirements arranged in an orderly fashion. Go through these two guidelines, PI 0561 and PI 0571, for more information. I hope that this information on remote assessment is useful. This is useful when situations are not favorable for an on site inspection. Also, when you have multiple manufacturing sites, this approach may be applied for internal audits from the corporate office managed centrally. Thanks for watching. For more videos, please do subscribe, like, and share. Also, please leave a message in the comments box for any further support. Thank you.